Didn't realize I was getting the Master of Suspense, which was
Never a dull moment over here. All right, let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, dude.
It's cool. We got there eventually.
Yeah, we got there. Piece of cake.
We fought the struggles. I'm terrible at introducing people, so I'd like you to introduce yourself if you would.
Well, my name's Raheem. I go by Mega Ran. I'm a former teacher turned hip hop artist, streamer, video game player. I don't know. That's really about it. Just all around good guy.
You got too many hats to wear, man.
Oh yeah, I wear a lot of hats. Have to for this big head.
I think this is kind of when I was like trying to reach out to get hold of you. I was like, he does a lot of stuff. I don't even know if we're gonna have time to cover everything, or what we might end up talking about.
Just the important stuff.
Just the important stuff. And also, I mean, getting people to introduce themselves allows me to know what name to call you by during, because I was like, do I call you Mega Ran? Do I call you Raheem?
Like Mega Ran when I'm on duty, I guess. Yeah.
Is this on duty?
Yeah, I'm working, right? Aren't you working?
Is this working? I hope this is working, because this is.
I hope so. I hope so.
So yeah, I mean, thank you for coming to the show. I honestly, to kind of get you here was a challenge in the sense that you ended up in my spam box.
What?
It was the weirdest thing. I contacted you, and then you came back through spam. I was looking through my spam, thinking, oh, get rid of a few of these, and it's like, hang on a minute, I have a legitimate message in my spam box.
Oh, huh? Was it like my initial message to you or a response?
It was your response.
That's weird.
I don't know. Something about that.
Your email doesn't like my email.
The world didn't want us to come together.
But we beat the odds.
We did.
We made it.
We got here in the end. We loved it in the end.
Yeah. Well, we didn't love it yet. We don't know yet.
No, we don't know yet. Not quite. So as I say, but when I reached out to you, I've been following you for kind of like a little while on Twitter, but I knew of you kind of way before, just through music and just like little things. But I couldn't remember the track I first heard you on, because you've done so much.
Okay. Wow. I mean, that makes sense. I've been making music since 2007 on the internet in various iterations. I was random before I was Mega Ran. And back then, like, MySpace was kind of the bee's knees. So we were all hanging out over there. Tom was everybody's friend. And then, then we've migrated since then and hung on tight. But yeah, it's been a minute. I think for a lot of people, their first exposure to me, like on a grand scale, was this album I did in 2011 called Black Materia. It's an album based on the story of Final Fantasy VII, which a lot of people consider one of the greatest games of all time. So much so that we're kind of revisiting it at this point. We're in the midst of the releases of the remake game, and so I did a remake album at the beginning of last year, which I'm very proud of. So I feel like it may have been around then that things started to kind of ramp up for me, personally and professionally, 2011. So many people hadn't heard of me before then, but maybe a few had.
I gotta be honest, I've never played Final Fantasy VII.
Wow. Well, I've
never played any of the Final Fantasies, to be honest. It's one of those genres I just never dived into.
Yeah, if you're not into Japanese RPGs, it's probably not going to move you, but the soundtrack is just phenomenal. Like, if anything, I would say just throw the soundtrack on and enjoy the music.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. I think this is one of those strange things of having. I have quite a few friends who are more into JRPGs, and I think everyone told me to play Final Fantasy, and that put me off playing it. And I kind of it got to that point of hype where I was like, I don't want to play that anymore.
There's a lot of things I missed out on just because of hype. I was just like, if everybody's talking about it, then I don't want to be a part of it. I was like that with comic books. Like, everyone was on my block was into X-Men, and so I wanted to be different. So I was like, well, I'm going to read X-Force. and X Factor and Excalibur and anything else that wasn't X-Men, and none of them were as good. But but still, it was like me just trying to be different.
Yeah, you got to do that. You got to push back every once in a while, right? Like,
I think so, man. I mean, but you find yourself missing out on some really good stuff though once in a while.
Yeah.
But the good thing about a lot of this media is that you can always revisit it, you know. But something like Final Fantasy VII, there's a lot of you had to be there, you know what I mean, for it. So it's like you try to play a PS1 game now, you're like, this is terrible.
Oh yeah.
You know, so thank goodness for the remake. I think the remake is a good place to start if you're interested. Great graphics, great story, and more action than kind of RPG. You know, than the wars in the past. You know,
that makes sense. Yeah, I think it is one of those things. Like you say, it is very much like you have to be there at certain times with certain games to kind of get it. Like,
oh yeah, there's a saying that I always use, that nostalgia is undefeated. You know, and it really is. But because if you were there, then it will forever be special to you. But if you weren't there, no big deal.
Everyone's got their own little pockets of like content and culture out there, which they just hook into and say, hey, this is mine. You know, this is what I grew up with. I mean, I have a real hardcore place for Time Splitters, yet most people look at Time Splitters and it's like that. It's just like a random game, which just flew me by.
Time Splitters was fun. It was ahead of its time. It really was. Having a level editor on a console game, you know, like, come on, no one was doing that. And it had the one of the greatest shooters of all time, the GoldenEye engine, you know. So if you were in the GoldenEye, like, you loved it. You know, it was very quick, very smooth. I'd love to see that kind of revisited.
There was like a little project which is meant to be remaking it.
You know what happened?
It was like Time Splitters remixed or reboot or something, and there's like a really small team of indie developers or something. We're going to remake Time Splitters.
Wow!
And then someone bought the rights to it like fairly recently, and then they started panicking, and they were like, "We're going to put out whatever we can because obviously they don't want to shut down."
Oh yeah, well, you don't have to call it Time Splitters. Just know, call it something else. You know, it's the spiritual successors are kind of in now. You know.
Yeah. I mean, so as you say, you've been running for a while. I guess the way to put it.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, I know you initially from kind of nerdcore, chip hop style stuff, but then you also, like, your recent release was more kind of like basketball oriented, from what I understand.
Yeah, it's more of a traditional release, I'd say, but you know. It's the title Live 95 is the name of a video game. You know, it's a very like important video game to like sports fans. It was one of the first times that like a simulation basketball game kind of got everything right, you know, on a console. And this was Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. And for me, it was just a very special game, special time where we'd be up all night having tournaments and playing this game. And we were just so impressed with the realism, you know, and the fun that this game brought. So really, that's what the album's about, is revisiting that time period where I was, you know, a younger, more innocent kid who was like experiencing these things for the first time. And so it's a very much a throwback type album, less video game references, I would say. But I think fans of the previous Mega Ran work will really enjoy it. And they must have. I mean, the record hit Billboard. I was very excited about that. You know, first time I cracked the Billboard 200, and you know, that's amazing because, you know, I'm an indie artist. You know, I don't have any big label and money behind me, and you know, this is like every genre of music and every release. There's probably 50,000 releases every day at this point. You know, when it comes to music. So I'm really excited that fans have stuck with me and what I've been creating over the years.
It's been fantastic to see. I mean, what I love about your stuff is your kind of like level of storytelling, which you do through a track, and how kind of heavily invested in. What I've just reminded myself in my head of, one of the other reasons I reached out was because I saw you on the Nether Raps with B Dolan in the live show he did in Minecraft. And
yes, that was really fun.
That was such an insane show. Like,
that was nuts, man. Props to B Dolan. I don't know how he put that together. I have no idea. Like, I'm a guy who's lived in the video game and music space for a decade, and I never would have thought about putting something like that together because I didn't think it would be possible. And he did it and did it very well. So props to that. Nether Rap. That was one of the most unique experiences I'd ever had.
it was such a strange moment for me as well, because I'd followed you kind of in two separate camps of like music genres, like B-Dolan, Strange Famous, and everything kind of on one side of like underground political raps, which kind of I'd been following. And then I had this other side, which was like, nerdcore, but kind of crafted content around pop culture and stories. And then all of a sudden I was just watching it. I was like, hang on a minute. I know both these artists. Like, they're suddenly coming together. How does this work? Like, what, how does that even come about? Like,
how does that come about? It's a very strange cross section. Like, I met B. Dolan in person in the UK on a tour. I don't know. Were you at that tour by any chance? This was 2015. I just put out a record with my friend Storyville called Soul Veggies. So it was I think it was more a traditional boom bap political record. And I was touring the UK and I noticed that B. Dolan had a tour going to the UK with Buddy Peace and maybe someone else. And I just threw out a Hail Mary pass and just, decided to shoot my shot, as we say. And I messaged B. Dolan and said, hey, look, you don't know me. I don't really know you, but I mean, we know of each other through the scene, but we're both going to be in the UK. We're both US artists, indie, like, why don't we put our heads together and try to do a little tour? And so we did. He was like, well, sure, man. Like, I happen to need a little bit of help with securing a certain city or a certain venue. And I'm like, oh, I got that, And so we were able to help each other. And I played some of my best shows out there with B. Dolan. And I'll always be thankful for that, man. He looked out for a guy he really didn't know, and just said, hey, look, here's another indie guy that's working hard and let's put our heads together. So that was 2015. And I think since then we've been kind of on each other's radar. We text each other like, hey, how you doing? How you been? We have 2 or 3 collaborations since then. We did 1984 with MC Lars. We did I don't even think that came out. I did a remix for him for 5 Hearts for the Epic Beardmen album, which if he didn't put that out, I want to put that out. So I need to find him because it was really good. So we've just done a lot of collaborating and just crossing paths. So whenever he's in my city, I'm in his city, we reach out, we hang out. So it just kind of happened from a cold email. And now somehow our worlds are connected. I do feel like the indie rap world, especially, is a very small world. Like, we all know each other, whether you're the political rap, the art rap, the nerd rap scene. Like, we all cross paths because we all play the same venues. We're all in the same cities. We all do South by Southwest, which is the big indie showcase, that happens in Austin. So we always cross paths.
It's an insane world to kind of look at and see how many of you do know each other or like appear in each other's replies when you're just on Twitter and you kind of like scrolling through. You're like, oh, it's tweeted there. And you're like, hang on a minute.
You're like, wait, what? Like, my worlds are coming together. Yeah. I love that. Like, I'll talk about PlayStation stuff and then like no one would expect will start responding. Yeah. And then people are like, wait, you know that guy? And I'm like, oh, sort of.
We've met. We've been in the green room together. It's one of those situations. Yeah, I love it. No, I think it's weird to see as well, because like, I know kind of genre to genre, there's like, you get a lot of conflict with people calling out one genre or another. But I think especially within the indie scene, there seems to be a little bit more openness to just like, yeah, we're all struggling in the same make music content world, and we need to go with that. I don't know if that reflects what your reality being in the indie scene. Oh, I think your mic's mute.
Oh, I'm muted. Yeah. There's definitely something to that.
Yeah. I think as well, I kind of like you say, you've done a few collaborations with him in MC Lars and whatnot. And I think it always brings me back to this kind of question, which I had raised the other day, of whether you need to be able to blend 2 genres together to get people to pay attention to one genre sometimes.
That is a good point. I mean, I don't know if you need to do anything, but if you maybe want, I think collaboration in sense, like rappers have had that down. I think the rest of popular music is figuring that out over the last 10 years, but collaboration has been such a big part of hip hop from the beginning. Blending genres, back in the 80s was a thing that everyone noted in hip hop first, So Yeah, we love that from the very beginning of hip hop. It was always about check out my crew, check out my DJ. Like, let's all, get together in a circle and connect and build ideas and share, So that's been a huge part of hip hop from the beginning. And so, yeah, I think the rest of music is kind of caught on with that is that, blending genres. I always love like mixed bills when I'm on tour are my favorite, like for sure. I think I rest in this world. My friend Lex, the Lexicon artist, told me a couple weeks ago. She's like, podcast. Oh, nice. She's like, when I was trying to explain to someone like what you do, Mega Ran, I was like, well, he's a guy with his feet firmly planted in like the hip hop community and the video game community, like firmly. And there's almost no one with that kind of footing in two very equal worlds, like Chiptune, which is related to the video game music community, but is its own subculture and subgenre, so being able to work in these different worlds and pull people and ideas and friends through those worlds has been so much fun, Yeah,
definitely. There's a comment I think B. Dolan made after the Nether Raps tour was like kind of talking about you and how you kind of come together as like a collaboration, but how he felt you kind of elevated the nerdcore genre above what he expected of the nerdcore genre. And I was like, that's a real interesting comment.
That is interesting. I would love to. I don't know if you ever have had B. Dolan on the show, but I would love to. Yeah, like I would love to hear his thoughts on that a little more. But I recall, and that's I was a little hesitant with reaching out to B. Dolan because I think I recall Sage Francis, who runs the Strange Famous with him, saying something maybe kind of derogatory about nerdcore. And maybe it wasn't even that it was untrue. It was just he had heard some really bad stuff and said, yo, nerdcore sucks. Like these guys aren't really good. They don't really care about being better. They don't care about the culture which they come from. And, he got some really bad, tastes in his mouth from what he had heard or experienced. And I wondered if B. Dolan thought the same way. And so when I reached out, I was like, oh man, he's going to laugh me off the block, like, oh, that nerdcore guy, he'll never tour with me. All right. Like we'll never work together, but talking to him, I believe it was in a green room somewhere in Manchester or something. Him saying to me like, dude, like, I can't lie. Like what I thought about nerd rap and what you do are completely two different things. Like I was totally wrong. And, when I see you on stage and when I see you, operating within this space, I'm very amazed and blown away. And I appreciate what you bring to this, and I was like, thanks, man. Like he didn't have to tell me that. And I thought that was really cool. But I understand, like I said, early nerdcore, a lot of it wasn't that good. And so I don't know if you recall, I mean, Lars probably doesn't like to bring it up, but at some point, Lars wrote this giant scathing blog post about how bad nerdcore was.
Right.
I think he titled it "Nerdcore is Dead," and people got upset, but he wasn't really wrong, And at that time, I was kind of just barely operating on the fringe of it, so I don't think he even knew who I was at that time. So he mentioned like 3 guys who were good. And then was like, the rest of it is terrible, And so everyone else got really upset. And since then, I think he kind of maybe walked it back a bit. But, it was something that needed to be said, I think, especially if like if it's on your mind, But yeah, I don't know if that fully answers your question, but I thought it was an interesting point to bring up.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, in a way, I find nerdcore quite a strange genre because it is obviously founded within the internet as its main kind of like origin point, which meant it was founded within people who were already online, which meant the people were acting in a way which was online, and then receiving criticism has a certain reaction from people when you're online. And then it's like it's a weird like level of kind of self-awareness but sensitivity to the situation. Like you say, when you're kind of within hip hop culture, there's a level of trying to one up each other in skill and talent. Whereas nerdcore kind of set a line and went, this is what nerdcore is. This is what it has to be defined as. Anything outside of that is terrible, rather than exploring and experimenting with it. And it strikes me as such a strange thing for, I guess, I mean, no other way of wording it, of art to suddenly have this is what this is. You can't do anything else.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a struggle. A struggle for artists.
One of the many struggles, we have a ton, I think ultimately, We want to create good art that we're proud of. And I've added new, constant struggles to my quest and my fight, and I think I said something in a song or Kick in the Door. I did this Biggie Smalls Notorious B.I.G. tribute project, and a song called Kick in the Door, as I say something about everyone's fighting to be the best, like to be the king or the man. I'm fighting for people around the world who don't even know what this is. And that's really it. Like I have an entirely different mission, where like some people are just want to, be noted as the greatest or get the local, accolades. But there's so many people who don't even know what this is that we're doing. And, and I just want them to understand. So it's in that sense, it's important to challenge your audience, and hope, that they grow with you, throughout this journey. And to put out this Live 95 record, like I would have been scared to do it 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Like I wouldn't have been sure, if it would have been accepted or if it would have been appreciated or anything like that. So it's a good thing to be able to be comfortable with who you are and what you're putting out, and comfortable that it will be, received well.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
definitely. You got to kind of know your audience. I always say that you kind of need to, at some point, you need to poke your audience to remind them who's in charge, essentially.
Yeah, for real.
Just like, this is what, just remind you that I do this.
This is for me. Like, don't forget.
I'll make the video about the thing which you like, but at the same time,
like this is for me. If I don't please me, then nobody's happy, and this train doesn't move.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious then in terms of like how you create and what you create for. Of obviously you mentioned that you're doing it from more of a concept of engaging the world to what this kind of is, but do you do it more to tell stories, or do you do it more just about the things you love? Is that what you sit down and you go, okay, this is how I'm writing today?
Yeah, I definitely want to tell stories, but also I want to be able to tell my story, and to someone who may not have experienced it and that can understand it, or in a way that it hopefully can be a little relatable, but also like a teachable moment. I'm a former teacher, so I'm all about the lesson, and if I can somehow fit the lesson in, but also still make the song catchy, the beat fun and things like that, I'm all about it. But yeah, it's mostly about making sure that someone gets something out of it, like either a glimpse into my experiences, or maybe a perspective they didn't see, or things like that. Like it's super important to me.
I'm kind of curious what kind of teacher you were.
Oh yeah, well, I was a middle school English language arts teacher, and I was fair. I tried to be fun. I was maybe too fun with middle school. They're like 11, 12, and so they knew that I knew about video games and all the other things that they liked, so they would try to catch me into these friendly confines where they're like, oh man, like I know you wanted to teach us this lesson, but there's a new Call of Duty out. Did you know about that? And then we start to, oh yeah, well let me tell you, it's like, and like, yeah, I'm like, oh man, I just got caught up. You got me, but yeah, I try to be the fun teacher. Like I would even rap for them and do music when I could, if it fit in with the lesson plan. And I was firm but fair. I was always taught you don't smile with the kids until Christmas. You keep a tight ship. And I was like, well, I want to be
such
human.
An odd phrase.
Yeah. You come in smiling and they're like, oh, we got you. Like they think you're being friendly. So I could see why people say that, but me, I'm more of a human teacher, and but I've definitely had moments where I've been kind of out of my character when kids just, decide they don't want to listen today. So yeah, I was firm but fair. I would like to say I was definitely firm but fair.
It's the best way to be as a teacher. I think kids are a much more ruthless audience than adults.
Yeah,
like, to the point, like I don't think I'd ever perform for kids. Like, I mean, I'm not a natural performer in terms of a live audience anyway, but performing for kids terrifies me compared to performing for a group of adults.
Oh yeah, it's so scary because kids have no filter and they don't care. So trying to impress a preteen is almost impossible. So even if you're doing the thing that they like, which is make rap music, or, they'll look at me and be like, oh, it's okay. And then they'll go and tell their friends or their, brother or their cousin at home, oh my God, my teacher, he raps, he's so cool, and then I come to school and be like, it was all right.
It was fine. It just reminded me of the ways we used to trick our teachers now. I had at least 2 science teachers who we knew we could cancel a whole lesson if we could get them talking about their kids. So we'd be almost instantaneous, like, oh, sir, how's your son doing these days? And then it would be free sailing.
Wow, nice. That's so slick. Yeah, every teacher has one of those. If you get them started, you might not have a lesson that day.
Everyone's got that weakness of ploying, manipulative kids. Like, don't trust the kids.
Don't trust kids. No.
Tell kids not to trust adults, but kids don't trust the kids either. It's a 2-way battle.
Yep.
I mean, we mentioned before you kind of collaborated with everyone. I'm curious if there's anyone who's like on your list of who you want to collaborate with. Like,
man, there's so many people. I feel like I've collaborated with so many folks, so
I typed in Mega Ran feature, like between things, and you just appear in everything.
Wow. I just found a guy that I really love who does these really like smart, poppy, sensible, like hip hop R&B tracks, named Abi the Nomad, who's really, really great. I'd love to collaborate with him. I have a lifelong dream to try to collaborate with like Stevie Wonder. I think that would be top of my list. Like if I could somehow sit down and write a song with Stevie Wonder, I might just die after that. But CeeLo Green, I think, has a very interesting sound. MF Doom would have been the top of my list, but he just passed, and that's like definitely been to me a bucket list type of collaboration that I think would be perfect, just because we were just both kind of nerdy, both like, and I think about Lex again, like both having 2 feet firmly in whether it's hip hop culture and nerddom. I thought like we're a little bit similar in that regard. So yeah, those are probably my main goals for collaboration. But everyone else, man, I feel like I've been lucky enough to collab with everyone that I've kind of wanted to collaborate with. I'm from Philadelphia, so also I got to give my bias. I got to say Will Smith, The Roots, and Jill Scott, who are probably all the like maybe 3 top like urban musicians from Philadelphia, and I would love to somehow do a song with them.
I mean, yeah, that's not a bad list to have, really. That's like top tier level. I mean, when you collaborate with people, do you find it challenging, or do you find it kind of pushes you?
It pushes me for sure. I've been I always say to myself, like, when you collaborate with someone on something, you gotta bring your A game. So, because their audience is hearing it, plus your audience is hearing it. So you're moving into 2 different groups of people, and one of those groups may not be very nice to you, and so therefore, you got to bring your best. They're not going to be like, oh, bless your heart, he tried, he really tried, he tried. I don't know if he's that good, but he tried. No, they're going to say, man, this sucks. Like, why are you working with these people? And so you got to bring your A game. And so to me, as an only child, I've always thought collaborating is how I've kind of made up with that. That's why I collab so much. I'm the only child. I love to create by myself, but there's a whole different gear that kicks in when there's someone else's energy and someone else. Like, I don't want to let them down, So I think most importantly, that's what's making me go super hard. Yeah.
Interesting. I like the way kind of like relate to being an only child. Whereas, I mean, I have a brother, and collaborating with people is something I find very difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult in a lot of ways. Even collaborating on projects that aren't music, it seems to be a little harder for me. Like when I try to get folks together on a podcast, like, all right, let's 4 of us all talk about this thing we love, and it's really hard to get everybody together. So I've been trying my best at that, but it's very difficult. People have different lives, different schedules, different, interest levels, so it's to me, that part has been difficult when it's like, I want to collaborate in a way that we're both creating something together that we both own and are proud of. It's been so tough because, their goals for this, their end goal might not be the same as mine,
Yeah.
and therefore we're we just have to be so we have to be so evenly keeled on that. And, it's literally like a marriage, but writing a song together is not, to me anyway. I don't know if that even makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a weird thing of kind of like, I guess a weird way to term it would be like group projects. When you have group projects and you've all kind of got like a different level of investment, even though you're all invested in just the base idea of, we're going to build a house. And then someone's like, okay, we're going to build a house, but I'm pretty much only invested up to the walls. And someone else does the windows. And you're thinking, we need to finish it all together. Or you're pushing it all towards the end. Keeping that going, in a way, it becomes more of a challenge than just building the house in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can totally relate it to that. I think that's probably the best way to look at it, because it's just, there's two different things. Yeah, like building a house together versus us just, jumping in the car together and going to dinner, And it's like, all right, we both want to get there, and then we can decide what we want later, and we can both make two different decisions. But the house, this is going to only end up one way. So we have to really get together and agree on the construction here.
You got to agree where the end point is. So you're not just staring off into the distance and someone else is like 3 years down the line with a house. Where'd everybody else go? I don't know. Just with this house. You're like, no, we were only in it until it was built. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's kind of like, it's a weird trade-off between like project management and getting the best out of one another, to be able to say this is, going to be the best thing we ever do together.
Yeah, I can totally see that. That's a really good way of putting it. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah. But you could look at both the same way, like as far as bringing the best out of each other. Like you said, if it's a group building a house, like we are still looking for the best possible solution, but like whose input should have more weight, like that's just a really hard thing to figure out,
Yeah, especially when if you're blending two things. I mean, kind of like you say within genres and within hip hop and within culture. If you're coming from different backgrounds and you're pushing those things together, someone's always going to have a louder voice in that conversation, and managing that between the pair of you is you have to trust each other a huge amount. Like to a scale which I don't know. I don't know if I have that level of trust in a person.
Yeah, same. I think, I think me being an only child is taking that level of trust away from me. Like I've never had to rely on someone. And that's probably why I work so good by myself, because I just feel like I'm always working at a different pace than everyone, And so I'd rather just I'd rather fail on my own, knowing exactly why I failed, rather than failing because I put all my faith in someone who didn't have the same, level of desire as I did,
I can completely appreciate that. Yeah. Especially you dive into something and you think this is going to be good, and then you get halfway through and you're like, why are they trailing behind? And if this fails, it's me. I feel like there's a level of self-hate which goes with artists that it's just natural to every single artist. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
It's a criticism, like, to yourself. Just it's comfortable if it's just you and you. It's just if there's someone else there, it's awkward, right?
No, really, it is. Yeah.
I mean, how do you deal with that? I guess as a genre, hip hop is very bravado. It's very ego driven, and yet being humble on a track to me seems like, I don't know, from the music I listen to from you, you sound very self-secure in what you create, and I'm wondering how much of that is just a fight to get to that point, or whether that's just something you naturally do.
Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, there are tracks where I'm a little boastful. I always think that the bravado should be kept for the records. You know what I mean? Yes, hip hop is pretty bravado. So I'm able to jump into other characters, and that's where I'll get the bravado from. I'm writing a song right now about Boba Fett. So clearly, I have to talk about how cool and badass he is, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's me talking about myself in that way. So yeah, through the benefit of third person, technology, I'm able to get these cool things out through other characters. I think that's a big thing for me. I'm not necessarily boasting a whole lot, but yeah, I think that confidence and arrogance, are two different things, but there's a thin line, and so I think it is important to exude confidence, and that's been something I've struggled with, but I still don't like my voice. I still don't, think I'm the greatest rapper of all time.
How can you not like your voice? How many tracks have you made of this point?
I don't know, man. I just feel like I don't have enough. I don't have as much. I don't know. I feel like I don't have as much control over my voice as I would like. Sometimes I'll listen back to something like, oh, I didn't think it would sound like that. But yeah, that's it. Really, I think everybody hates their voice to a certain point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of normal.
Definitely. I've noticed the kind of comedians share that same kind of aspect of ego and like putting themselves into a character. So they're not necessarily on stage and they're just kind of watching themselves. And it's like a weird like cheat code to get out of just letting their ego fly in a way.
Yeah. Let it fly.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe more artists do that. I miss the days of when kind of like illustration and visual arts were more like character driven, when you kind of like had fine artists who were just like larger than life characters. I feel like that fell off at some point.
Yeah, well, Nerdcore is picking up for that. I think there's been a rise. I've been over the last few years, especially I guess because I'm home more. Mm-hmm. I've been able to kind of dig into what's happening in Nerdcore, and a lot of folks on the YouTube side of it have been really successful in character-driven raps, taking a story or an anime or a show and just jumping into a character and making entire songs, like more than one sometimes, about the complexities of a character, but making them also sound like legit, real, dope rap songs, that if you didn't know would just be a good song, and I think that today's Nerdcore kids have really got that down, to the point where they are creating just really, really like high level tracks that if you didn't know, but unfortunately they have to let you know because, they're kind of playing an algorithm game. So It's like Goku rap, or something like that. But if you didn't know that and it wasn't named that, you just would have no idea, So it's been a very interesting journey, like listening to a lot of these young kids do it very well to the point where they just sound like good rap songs about how cool you are. But it's like, oh no, that was the story of Demon Slayer, this anime that I love. And you're like, what? Which just takes a lot of creativity, So I think it's definitely worth checking out if you enjoy those things.
Definitely. I'm kind of curious if you, I don't know, obviously been making tracks for a while, and like you just mentioned that like younger rappers are playing an algorithm game, like that, especially trying to get exposure and stuff on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's kind of changed things for good, or do you think like not for good as in good and evil, but like finality?
Okay, that's two different questions. Yeah, that's definitely two questions. Like if you say, oh, is it a good thing, or is this going to be the way that we have to create for the foreseeable future? Both are big questions. I think so. I think this is how we're going to have to create if people want to make that kind of that jump. I think you are going to have to create with a little bit of the algorithm in mind, which sucks because that is going to put a definite damper on maybe a bit of a handcuff on how creative you can be. Mm-hmm. I see it happening in popular music. Like right now, the sweet spot for music, like as far as duration of the song, seems to be about 2.5 minutes.
Right.
And that's because someone determined that people don't want to listen to something more than 2.5 minutes. And so now every big song is 2.5 minutes. And so I'm like, well, in 5 years, is it going to be 90 seconds? Like it makes me wonder, but you might have really want to do something creative. Like, oh, the key change was going to come at 3:35. And, this whole other movement was going to happen. And they're like, nope, no time. 2:30. Keep it moving. The next song will be the key change. I don't know.
That's madness. It's come such a long way as well, though, because like we're like you're saying, like 2:30 is like the track time, where I'm thinking back to like the 80s where rock bands were putting out like 10-minute tracks, and that was
like it was very standard to be 8 to 10 minutes played on television, get music videos, all that stuff. And now we've just determined that no one will listen past a certain point. So no one wants to take a chance and challenge anybody. They're like, well, let's just fall in line. Now collaboration, like I said, is the key. So it's like, putting other people on your song, changing, adding genres, types to your songs to kind of cast a wide net. So yes, I do think this is the future of popular music. I don't think people on the indie side have to do anything, which I think is great. I like not having to succumb to any of these rules. I've gotten to a point now, though, where when writing songs, I feel like you should be able to say what you need to say in 2 verses, right. And now that doesn't mean that every song will only be 2 verses. But if it's a song for me that isn't necessarily about something, like it's not a story that has the beginning, middle, end, but maybe a message, I feel like 2 minutes should be enough to get the message out, or 2 verses rather. But there are times and exceptions, and I never have to feel like, oh man, they're not going to play it past 2:30. This is when the cool key change happens of the thing. I don't have to worry about that, and I feel like indie artists can continue to push the boundaries, but popular music will chase the algorithm, because TikTok and such are the new way that people discover music. So
yeah. I agree. It's kind of sad, in a sense of like we're losing that gradually year by year, that tracks get shorter, or like even like you say, kind of like fan art and stuff like that. That's what gets the attention of the public, because it's got connection to things which they're already nostalgic about and they're already invested in. So it's like, oh, it's just continuing my content journey by blah 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 blah. And yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful that like indie genres and indie artists will stand up to that and still create the things they want to create. But it worries me.
Oh yeah, there's a legit worry in there for sure.
Because I don't know, it's definitely something which I've thought about a lot, in terms of especially blending serious subjects and blending things which are popular, and seeing how that has an effect on the subject you're touching on. And I'm curious what how that will affect artwork down the line and artists down the line. Maybe we'll see less of it.
Yeah, I mean, time will tell, man.
We got to break the mold. That's what I'm aiming for. He says doing an hour-long podcast. Like, you got to listen past 2 minutes 30 on this podcast, man.
No, 2 minutes and 30.
You won't get to this discussion, which will be right at the end. Oh, man. So obviously you had your tracks come out end of last year, this year. Right, I think we said earlier. It was like
last year.
And you're working on new tracks coming out. Have you got an album coming out this year? 2022?
Nah. I'm determined to kind of ride the momentum of this record. Like it just came out in October. Hit Billboard. Like I got a few ideas for singles, for videos, for a ton of things. So I want to keep that going. I don't necessarily want to just jump to the next thing,
Definitely. Are you like a fully involved video kind of person? Like you're mapping the video in your head and creating?
Yes, for sure. Like I like to sit down with a director or with a videographer and like really put these things to like making the most outlandish ideas come to life somehow. It's like, all right, we don't have the budget to do this, but how can we pretend we have the budget to do this?
I like that. Just imagine we have the budget, and then we'll make it happen. And that it all blends together. It's all DIY. I love it. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
Which again I think it's one of those things which constantly drives creatives. Is barriers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If it was easy, I don't know if people would do it.
Who would do it?
If you could instantly make a track and it was like perfect and how you wanted, would you bother making that track?
No, I don't think I would.
Even if you got the message out, it's just like no.
Yeah. No. Mm-mm.
the world is changing and putting us towards technology which does that.
Yep.
Feel
So
like
strange.
there's a certain point of whether, because obviously it's driven by kind of capitalism and consumerism to make these products. I don't know who they're making these products for anymore.
Yeah, I don't
'Cause we
know.
don't want it. Like,
It's not for me. Yeah. It's clearly not for like me. So yeah, I have no idea of who a lot of these things are made for at this point.
dream making machines, which is
Yeah.
do you ever find a conflict of that between being a creative yourself and encountering other people who are just like, oh yeah, you know, it's easy, anyone can do it because nowadays, because technology's that, and you're like, actually, you know, there's a certain mentality which requires and skill to do what I do.
Yeah, I think people do. And I think I've seen a few of them, you know, attempt to do what I do and maybe not get the success, you know, and I think that people then find out the hard way, you know, that it ain't easy. You know, this is something that has taken years of work, skill, luck, practice to make happen. And it's not easy. And but I think people just, take a video game and rap about it and boom, you know, and it's like, well, nope, not gonna work. And then they're like, you know, disappointed or sad, or maybe find themselves losing a lot of like, you know, momentum that they had thought they had built up, you know, or a lot of investments, you know. And because it ain't easy. Ain't easy.
Definitely not. I think challenge does clear. It kind of clears the driftwood, as I say, of when you try to create something and then you, as soon as you hit a barrier, if that's the point you're giving up, chances are you probably weren't going to roll with it till the end.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good point. That's really well put. Like, but yeah, like a lot of people aren't in it for the long haul, you know, and I think being in it for the long haul somewhat kind of means doing it even when it's not working out for you, just doing it because it's fun. Like, you know, not following, you know, a trend or an idea that you saw somewhere else, but just doing it because you enjoy doing it. Like I've been reading books about that, and like falling in love with the process is something that I've seen so much. And that's probably the number one thing, is that if you're not in love with the act of making this thing, then, you know, it's not going to work out for you.
Definitely. I completely agree. And I think that's a great point to round this out. Thank you for coming along. It's been lovely.
Thanks for having me, man. This has been super fun.
Glad to hear that. You know, it was a challenge to get here, but we got here in the end, and we went down the rabbit hole.
Yep, down the rabbit hole. Yeah, fun times.
It's one of those things of I'm never sure when a guest comes along and we haven't got a topic specifically. But I think we covered a lot of ground. Not to sound too much like a therapist, we covered a lot of ground.
This was very much like therapy, except I'm not crying. But everything else, great.
I failed then. If you never watch the podcast, at the end they always leave crying. That's the goal. Like, that's
the thing. They leave crying. Definitely. Maybe next time.
I'd have you back. I'd love to have you back, man. It's been fun chatting to you.
Thank you. I'd love to come back.
There we go. All right. On that note, it's been lovely to have you, and we'll talk to these guys later.
Thanks, Graham.